shift our perspective when we look at a situation that we may be faced with. And how when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change, as Dr. Wayne Dyer used to say. Today, as I explained earlier, I want to explore the idea of what is perhaps one of the most prevalent diseases on the planet right now, certainly in developed countries, and that is loneliness. And how we can step into being completely at peace, whether we are in a room of nobody or a room of hundreds of people, or anywhere in between. And we're going to use several songs to look at the themes of loneliness, because after the initial popularity of the Beatles, where it was, boy meets girl and relationship stuff, which we'll talk about next week, they actually moved into some pretty heavy subject matters, which had never really been explored in music before. In Eleanor Rigby, Nowhere Man, these are not songs that are for the faint of heart. If you look at the words, they're about the human condition. And so we're going to look at the words of Eleanor Rigby, Nowhere Man. I'll read to you, She's Leaving Home, Blackbird, and then The Long and Winding Road. We started today with the song, I didn't put it on the slide, but we started with the idea of how do you feel? And the idea of needing someone to love. I want someone to love, I need someone to love. I'll get by with a little help from my friends. That actually is the antidote to loneliness. The idea of having someone to love, having someone love us back, and the idea of just getting by. It's interesting because the words themselves start with, I'll get by, I'm going to get high, I'm going to try. So you get this sense that friends are with you at every step of the way, and that will help us to move forward in our life. Friends can be people outside of us, but friends can also be the parts of us. Sometimes the most critical messages we hear are not from the friends out here. It's from the friends in here that are saying some pretty nasty things to us at times. And so in order to arise, we want to make friends with every part of ourselves, even the parts that we may not like, the parts that irritate us about ourselves, the parts that we may think, oh, there's that impatient self showing up again, and to come to terms with it. And the fact that we are experiencing loneliness means that we are longing for something different. We humans are wired for love. We're wired for connection. The US Surgeon General Vivek Murthy wrote, "Loneliness is like hunger, a signal that we're lacking something for survival." A signal that we're lacking something for survival. So we look briefly at the song words in Eleanor Rigby. And it starts with the lament. Look at all the lonely people. Look at all the lonely people. And then we see this image of two people longing for connection in life. Eleanor Rigby, somebody who I imagine is a devoted servant of the church. She goes to the church. She probably helps hand bulletins to people or helps in the kitchen, or you get a sense that she's there for a purpose. So she's at this church picking up rice where a wedding has been. Perhaps she's dreaming that one day she'll be a bride, that she will find love. But she waits at a window. She hides behind who she really is, behind a face that she keeps in a jar by the door, looking out, waiting for someone to bring joy to her life, perhaps to give her life more meaning. And we see Father Mackenzie, a well-meaning minister, writing a sermon that no one will hear. And there's a sense of such loneliness in that idea that he's writing a sermon, wanting to do good, and then alone, darning his socks in the nighttime. And then again, another poignant phrase in the song. Who is it for? The whole question, the whole song is a question. Why are we here? What is our purpose? And do we need to put a face on before we can be recognized? Where do we belong? We get a hint of where we belong in the words to the song, Nowhere Man. Here we get this image of a man who is lost, no sense of direction. He's making plans, but going nowhere. And there's this dissonance in the language. A real nowhere man. It doesn't even fit. It's so clever because it doesn't fit. And what I take from this song is the idea that someone is just doing stuff, busy, making plans, living his life, but without a compass that has a true north, without a sense of what that person's values might be. And how often do we, each of us here, lose sight of what's important? How often do we make plans that really don't matter and pay attention to things and pin our time to things that really aren't going to take us anywhere? Isn't he a bit like you and me? At times, yes. And the reason I use the word at times is because it incorporates the whole human condition, because at times, especially during important things, funerals, person getting really sick, those are the times when we stop and we remember what matters. And then at times we go back to making our nowhere plans for nobody. The other thing that's really cool is the idea of, can you see me at all? Because what's also true for all of us is that the more we focus on what we want to see, the less we'll be able to see another person's point of view and what they may be experiencing. We can be so busy with our own plans that we don't make space for another point of view. We don't make space at times, for listening deeply to what somebody else is saying, for respecting that no one person has the same viewpoint as anyone else. So there's this sense of like ick, of lostness. And then we see hope. You don't know what you're missing. Listen. The world is at your command. Take time. Listen. Ask yourself if it can be different. Take your time. Don't hurry. Ugh. Asking me not to hurry is like asking the Pope not to be Catholic. To take time is a discipline. But when we do that, we realize that we're not alone. There is wisdom that can come to us when we give ourselves time. And it is as if someone is reaching out, and it can be a physical reaching out to someone and making a connection, or a divine one, if you will. That whisper of wisdom that comes to you, that reminds you about what is yours to do. Your world is at your command. If you take time, you will be more intentional about how you spend those precious 24 hours that you have in a day. I was at a workshop yesterday morning, and the facilitators had this image of 24 hangers in a closet. And they said, imagine that you only could use these 24 hangers to dress yourself with in the period of a month. And of course, they weren't talking about 24 hangers, although that's great too. If you can achieve that, I can't. But the idea that we have resources that we want to be intentional about, rather than being a nowhere man. And it takes courage. And it takes this longing within you and an awareness that something is missing. That what you're in isn't where you're meant to be. That will help you to move towards that feeling of arising. And the most beautiful song of stepping into hope, as well as the most beautiful song about the confusion that others may feel when you choose to do that, can be found in the words of the song, She's Leaving Home. In this song, we hear the story of a young woman who's maybe in her late teens or early 20s. And in the echo, we hear the voices of her parents who love her deeply and are totally confused. Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock, as the day begins, silently closing her bedroom door, leaving the note that she hoped would say more, she goes downstairs to the kitchen, clutching her handkerchief. Quietly turning the back door key, stepping outside, she is free. She, and we hear the parents, we gave her most of our lives, is leaving, sacrificed most of our lives, home. We gave her everything money could buy. She's leaving home after living alone for so many years. Then it goes back. It's like, okay, hit me, give me time to breathe. This is the breathing time. Father snores as his wife gets into her dressing gown, picks up the letter that's lying there. Standing alone at the top of the stairs, she breaks down and cries to her husband, "Daddy, our baby's gone." I knew this would happen. Why would she treat us so thoughtlessly? Why would she do this to me? We never thought of ourselves, is leaving. Never a thought for ourselves. Home. We struggled all of our lives to get by. The refrain, she's leaving home after living alone for so many years. Friday morning at 9 o'clock, she is far away, waiting to keep the appointment she made, meeting a man from the motor trade. What did we do that was wrong? Is having, we didn't know it was wrong. Fun. Fun is the one thing that money can't buy. Something inside that was always denied for so many years. She's leaving home. Bye, bye. Two characters, two groups of characters. A child living at home, loved, perhaps oppressively loved, longing for freedom to make her own choice, to find her own way, to make her own mistakes. We never know what happens to this girl. We just know that she leaves on Wednesday and she's somewhere else by Friday morning. But we know she's free and having fun. That is her experience of life. And we see with her parents the same things that we will experience when people we care about go and do things that we don't think they should be doing. Including, again, those thoughts within ourselves who are going to want to protect us. And what we see from the parents is that they start out in this place of not necessarily victimhood, but, I set everything up for you, what's the matter? So that's sort of the first thing is, why break it? It's not broken. Followed by irritation. You're being selfish. You're making it all about you. What about me? Followed by, what did we do that was wrong? Followed by acceptance, wisdom. It doesn't matter how much I give to you if you are not having fun. It's not going to matter. Fun is the one thing that money can't buy. Fulfillment is probably too many syllables to fit in that song, but that's what they're talking about here, is the idea of wholeness, a feeling of not being lonely in the middle of the room of your family or your friends or your workplace. And what we can take from this for us, other than the deeply emotional impact of the song, is that when we are ready to follow that longing within us, we can expect that it's going to feel uncomfortable. She sneaks out at 5 o'clock in the morning. She leaves a note. She doesn't speak to them. There's nothing that she feels that she can actually speak to them about, and yet the note will be insufficient and she knows it. So there's this sense of I have to do this, and this sense of, I know it's going to be uncomfortable. But I would suggest that she is probably going to think that the journey was worth it, that the discomfort was worth it. And where is she going? On a long and winding road that leads to the door of peace, fulfillment, contentment, healing. The place, we're always on a long and winding road. But it's calling to us. What McCartney said is, the long and winding road is a sad song because it's all about the unattainable, the door you never quite reach. This is the road that you never get to the end of. The thing about this road is that it doesn't disappear. We're on the road of life. And the door that we're aiming to get to, that we want to move in the direction of, is the highest part of yourself. God. The place where you are vibrating and energetically at your most serene. And we do experience at times, we know what it feels like. We get glimpses of it at times. But wild and windy nights come and go, and the rain washes them away, but leaves a pool of tears. And we cry for yesterday. Again, there's this longing for, why leave me standing here? Show me the way. Yes, I've cried many times. Yes, I've been alone many times. But despite my pain, my thoughts, my instincts, my inner wisdom propel me forward to that door. Don't leave me waiting here. Lead me to your door. And when we get there, it's as if we're this blackbird flying free for the first time. McCartney wrote this song to recognize the civil rights movement in the United States at the time. And again, this is what he wrote. I remembered this whole idea of you were only waiting for this moment to arise was about the black people's struggle in the southern states. And I was using the symbolism of a blackbird. It's not really about a blackbird whose wings are broken, you know. It's a bit more symbolic. Well, yeah. The idea that we have this longing, that we're waiting for this moment to arise, and that we want to take these broken wings and learn to fly. Take these sunken eyes and learn to see. Is a powerful idea. Learning doesn't happen by somebody showing it to you. Learning happens when you try something and it fails, and you try something again and it fails, and you take 2 steps forward and 1 7/8 step back, and slowly, slowly, slowly you make your way forward. That is what it takes to arise at times. At other times, it'll happen in a blink of an eye, but normally, as Paul said, change happens slowly. And how do we get that change finally to happen? You got to remember to love. At the end of our service today, we'll sing All You Need Is Love. And there are a couple of key phrases that I want you to pay attention to. One is, you can learn how to be you in time. And another is, there's nowhere you can be that isn't where you're meant to be. It's easy. And it's funny because there's nothing easy about singing that song, because it's like a tongue twister. But there's nowhere that you can be that isn't where you're meant to be. You are here for a purpose. With a little help from your friends, both out here and in here, you can move through the nowhere man land to a place where you are stepping outside to be free. There is nowhere you can be that isn't where you're meant to be. It's easy. All you need is love, because you are only waiting for this moment to arise. I bless you.